In dating, if somebody likes you or is interested in getting to know you, typically speaking, they are going to reserve sex for later at a time when it's appropriate for you to talk about it. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. One of the things that have come up recently about the voice note, the voice memo, is around the boundaries around intimacy and dating and things like that. And there certainly can be exceptions. So for all of those, me and my husband or me and my wife hooked up on the first date and we've been together 40 years. This is not for you. And it's important to recognize that you guys are not the norm, right? But I think it's important to specify that, like, when someone introduces sex inappropriately and early, it's usually not going to go up, form a relationship, and onwards and upwards from there, to happily ever after. Usually, when someone is wanting sex or requesting sex, first or second date, there's a good chance, especially now if it's online, right, where there's not really a whole lot of effort in vetting and dating anymore, or vetting and dating on the apps and things like that. Usually, if they're asking for that, their whole intention was to use the app, but also access to you as part of a hookup, right? And when you're thinking about hookups, hey, let's do something casual. And even if they're dating other people, if they're hooking up, there's a good probability that that's what they're doing right now, and they don't really have a serious interest in dating. Dating is going out, to restaurants, activities, talking to each other, getting to know each other, getting to know your history, seeing if our values align, seeing if our personalities mesh, seeing if we're actually compatible. Can we actually get along? Can we actually carry a conversation together? That is what dating is. And so when you're doing that, sex honestly should not uh, be the first thing on your mind. It's also not something that you should need to do in order to figure out if you and someone can date and be compatible. Sexual compatibility is something that comes later and comes after you've been able to build that bond, build that trust. You know about someone's medical or health history at the very least, and that you two have had a conversation around boundaries and consent. But the one thing that you should know and that you should be clear, if they just want to hook up, they're not interested, most likely, in a serious commitment or the work that it takes for a commitment, especially if it's just, we haven't really even gone out yet, or the idea of going out is very low effort, such as a walk, a hike, a cup of coffee, or coming over to your place or you coming over to my place, where these are things that are just, these are more like kick it activities. And I'm not saying that any of these activities are inherently bad, but when you have someone that's not really like interested or partaking in courtship, like true courtship, and making an effort and getting to know you and all of these things, they're showing you where this is going. And remember, when you first start dating, the first 3 to 6 months, really, that needs to be the best time in dating. That should be your honeymoon period. So if they're starting off with a struggle, if they're starting off with aloofness, if they're starting off with wanting to hook up, remember, you've seen the best that they have to offer right from the beginning, typically. And even for those of you who say, oh, they're going to, some men play the long game, or some women play the long game, there will always be signs that someone is, that trickery is afoot, that they don't really have any intentions on sticking around. So, for example, if we're going back to the voice note, and again, I don't know, all the particulars behind that situation, but if, just hypothetically speaking, if we're dating and I'm interested in sex, the conversation around sex, and wanting to pursue that with you or wanting to have that connection with you should not be over text, should not be over voice note, or any of that kind of stuff. That's really more of an intimate conversation. Now, if you're into hookups and they're into hookups and you guys are in sync, this is not for you. I'm talking about people that are actually interested in dating and connection and partnership. But if you want to share that level of intimacy and that connection with someone, that's a telltale sign that, like, how they enter into the conversation or how they enter into a relationship with you, that is a sign of what's to come. So for me, a voice note is incredibly cold. It's incredibly detached, and it's really there's no, like, there's not really a whole lot of thought. There's not a whole lot of conversation, right? It's like, well, I'm interested in pursuing this with you. What do you think? Like, let's have a conversation. Let's make this on an equal playing ground to where we can both feel autonomous. We can both feel respected and cared for. And then if you don't feel okay with it, then, whatever. And that means, like, going over expectations, because someone could, leave a voice note that's incredibly detached and say that they want to pursue intimacy or sexual intimacy with you, and then ghost you after they have it. And that would be the first thing that comes to my mind when someone breaches the conversation like that, that's abruptly, that's like, that's very detached and in an electronic form of communication, and also too, that it's less about dating and more about meeting my physical needs. So I hope that kind of makes sense. And again, everyone has autonomy over themselves and agency over themselves and how they want to conduct themselves. But remember, there's always going to be signs in terms of how people lead, how they handle you, how they communicate with you, and how you are valued in the relationship. A lot of times we don't notice that until the infraction has already happened. And then we take a look back at our hindsight and say, well, I should have said something then, or I should have thought that when, all that kind of stuff. And then you think about things a lot more. So just some food for thought. I hope that helps. Let me know what you think. Like, comment, follow, and share if you feel so inclined. And then you guys have a great Monday. Thank you so much.